for Marco's Marine Debris Work Group. And on behalf of our work group summit planning team, I just want to welcome you to the second Mid-Atlantic Marine Debris Summit. And we're so grateful for your time this week. As Sylvia Earle, one of our ocean heroes, also known as her deepness, notes here on this slide, it's so important to remember that each of us alone and together can make a world of difference. And we have 445 of you joining us this week, and we should be a mighty force indeed. And just to make that point more visibly, here's a map of where you all are from, literally from all over the world. So we're excited to have you all here with, from all over this country and the world. And thank you for being here today to support and learn with us. The summit is made possible through a grant from NOAA's Office for Coastal Management to the Virginia Coastal Zone Management Program, and then the Virginia CZM program contracted with Marco to help develop this summit. And I'd like to thank the members of our Mid-Atlantic Marine Debris Work Group who've served on our summit planning team. We have Avalon Bristow and Judy Tucker from Marco, Katie Register and Michaela Jennings of Clean Virginia Waterways at Longwood University, and their event and conference staff. Thank you all. They've helped with technical aspects of the Zoom meeting today. And also on our team, we have Christy Kehoe from NOAA's Marine Debris Program, Matt Robinson from Washington, D.C.'s Department of Energy and Environment, Christy Mazzio-Fortner from the New York State Department of State, Virginia Whitmer from our Virginia CZM program, and finally, Carl Villacova from Monmouth University, who's helped us with some of the lovely breaks that you'll see with videos and wonderful pictures of our marine environment. So before we hear from our opening speakers, we just have a few housekeeping matters for you. We are recording this summit, and it will be available later on the Marco website. And all of your cameras and microphones are turned off, but we do ask for and appreciate your engagement by participating in our polls and also writing your questions into the Q&A box during the presentation. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see the little Q&A box tool. So before we begin, we're going to practice on those polls. And we wanted to do just a fun, quick poll to get you familiar with the technology. Hopefully we are all emerging from, beginning to emerge at least from the COVID pandemic. And although we know many places are still struggling, as places do begin to open, where in the world would you most like to relax on a beach? And I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer, and then we'll show the results of the poll. All right, are we at about 30 seconds, Longwood team? Great. All right, we've looks like a lot of people would like to go to the Pacific Islands in Australia. I would too, that would be great. All right, looks like everybody's good for using the poll, so thank you all for checking that out. All right. So what we're going to do first is we have two pre-recorded videos. The first is from Alexandra Cousteau, who is Senior Advisor to Oceana. And Alexandra lends her environmental expertise, there she is, and influence to help guide the organization's global campaigns to protect and restore the world's oceans. She is the president and co-founder of Oceans 2050, and she's also a National Geographic Emerging Explorer filmmaker and globally recognized advocate on water issues, who continues the work of her renowned grandfather, Jacques-Yves Cousteau, and her father, Philippe Cousteau. So Alexandra's global initiatives seek to inspire and empower individuals to protect not only the ocean and its inhabitants, but also the human communities that rely on these resources. So with that, if we can go ahead and we'll show this nice video.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Cousteau. I've been working with Oceana, the world's largest international ocean advocacy organization, for years in its efforts to protect our blue planet. and I'm thrilled to speak to all of you today about the growing environmental threat we're here to combat, marine debris. Before I dive in, I just want to thank each and every one of you for using your time, talent, and effort to address this problem. There are few things more important to our survival than our oceans. I was lucky to experience the ocean at a young age when I joined my parents on expedition as an infant and learned to swim before I could walk. When I was 7, I was taught to scuba dive by my grandfather, Jacques Cousteau. And throughout my childhood, he instilled in me a respect for the marine world and all of its inhabitants. Unfortunately, that respect isn't shared by all. For nearly 50 years, plastic has been flooding our oceans at alarming rates. My grandfather once said, water and air, the 2 essential fluids on which all life depends, have become global garbage cans. That was decades ago, and it's still happening. Marine debris, particularly plastic pollution, has quickly become one of the largest environmental crises facing our planet, while production of single-use plastics continues to skyrocket. Roughly 33 billion pounds of plastic enter the ocean every year. That's the equivalent of dumping 2 garbage trucks full of plastic into the ocean every minute. An estimated 900 marine species, including many endangered species, are affected by marine plastic pollution. Oceana recently released a report after reviewing all of the available observed and reported cases of marine mammals and sea turtles impacted by plastic in US waters. And the findings were heartbreaking. Nearly 1,800 of these animals had swallowed or become entangled in plastic since 2009, and 88% of them were from endangered or threatened species. In Delaware, a young emaciated pilot whale was found dead on Dewey Beach with shredded instant ramen noodle bags in its gut. In Virginia, a female sei whale swallowed a DVD case, harming her ability to find food. In New York, a juvenile gray seal was found with a plastic sandwich bag wrapper around its neck. The Mid-Atlantic is known for its coastlines, bustling beaches, and of course, seafood. Your coastal economies depend on a healthy ocean. But if we want a healthy ocean for the Mid-Atlantic, we need change now. And policy is the most effective way to turn the tide. Regulating single-use plastic is the logical place to start. Nearly 40% of the plastic produced annually is for single-use plastics and packaging. And unsurprisingly, that's what we're seeing in our environment too. The most common waste items found polluting oceans and coastlines worldwide were single-use plastic products, including food wrappers, beverage bottles, grocery bags, and takeout containers. In the Mid-Atlantic, there's been some progress in tackling plastic pollution through legislative action as recently as this year. In February, Virginia banned both polystyrene foam food service containers, including takeout boxes and cups, and intentional balloon releases. This spring, Maryland also banned balloon releases. And last year, New Jersey passed a bill that banned plastic bags and polystyrene foam takeout containers and made straws available by request only. Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, has banned plastic straws and polystyrene foam food packaging and placed a 5-cent fee on single-use plastic bags. On a national scale, we saw the introduction this year of a comprehensive federal bill to continue the momentum initiated by cities and states. If passed, the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act would be the first national law to phase out unnecessary single-use plastic products. In the meantime, countries around the world are leading the way. In Chile this year, Oceana celebrated an enormous victory when our colleagues helped to pass what is arguably the most comprehensive national single-use plastic foodware ban in history. The new law bans all plastic takeout containers, not just the plastic foam ones, in addition to plastic utensils, straws, stirrers, cups, plates, and packets. Plastic production is growing at a rapid rate, which means plastic can be expected to increasingly enter our oceans if companies do not change course. Individuals often ask how they can help. I think it's important to point out that in addition to using reusable products rather than single-use plastic, they can use their voice to support larger change, especially when they join with others. Thank you all for being here. for prioritizing the marine debris problem, and for the work I know you'll do to reverse this crisis moving forward. Progress can't happen without the conversations you're having today, and I hope you end this summit with fresh perspectives and strategies, because together we can lay the foundation for change. Thank you for all you do, and best of luck.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful that Alexandra is carrying on the work of her father and grandfather, and I hope we all find those words encouraging. And she gave us a nice sneak preview of things that are happening in the Mid-Atlantic. So again, we really appreciate her being with us today and taking the time to record that message. And next we have a recorded message from Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He was unable to join us live today, but we're really grateful for his remarks as well. And Senator Coons was elected to the US Senate in 2010, following terms as Newcastle County Council President and Newcastle County Executive. And in the Senate, he sits on the Appropriations, Judiciary, Foreign Relations, Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and Ethics Committees. And before entering government, he worked as an attorney for W.L. Gore and Associates in Delaware. And as a law student, he founded the Delaware chapter of the National I Have a Dream Foundation, which helps low-income students make the academic journey from elementary school through college. And shortly after receiving his law degree and clerking on the US Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, he began working at the organization's national office, where he launched and ran its AmeriCorps program in 15 cities. Senator Coons graduated from Amherst College with a BA in chemistry and political science, and earned a law degree from Yale Law School and a master's in ethics from Yale Divinity School. So quite an educational background. And now we'll hear the message from Senator Coons.
Thank you to everyone who's participating in today's summit on marine debris. Folks from NOAA, from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Ocean, from the Virginia Coastal Zone Management Program, and a wide range of other groups and organizations. As we all know, marine debris is a global problem that threatens marine habitats, economic growth, and ultimately our health and safety. Here in my home state of Delaware, where our beaches are one of the most popular attractions and where so many Delawareans earn their living or take their vacations, we see directly the impacts of ocean pollution and climate inaction. Every year, billions of pounds of trash and other pollutants enter our oceans worldwide, and plastics make up nearly 80% of that trash pouring into our seas. I know so many organizations and individuals participating today have dedicated your time and energy and resources to tackling this vital problem of reducing marine debris. In Delaware, where our beaches are sanctuaries for so many ecosystems, I often hear from my fellow citizens who are concerned about marine debris and about protecting the health of our ocean and our beautiful coastline. That's why I joined with several other senators, Senators Whitehouse and Sullivan and Graham, last year in introducing the Unite for Our Oceans Act, which has been signed into law, and established a global trust fund to prevent and reduce marine debris and plastic pollution. It received $75 million in funding to begin an initiative to reduce marine debris and strengthen waste processing systems. It's an important start, but it's far from enough. We've got a much bigger hill to climb and a great challenge to tackle together. I'm going to keep working to secure resources for federal agencies to do that and to make meaningful investments in improving waste and recycling systems around the world. So to everyone joining today, thank you. Thank you for prioritizing these topics, and I look forward to continuing to make progress together.
We thank Senator Coons for his remarks and his enduring support for the legislation and actions that keep our environment clean and safe. And with that, I would now like to introduce in person our first live speaker for the day.
Thank you to everyone who's participating in today's summit.
Oops. There we go. This is Virginia's Secretary of Natural Resources, Natural and Historic Resources, and our Chief Resilience Officer, Matthew Strickler. So Matt, if you could turn your camera on, welcome. We are so glad to have you. Before joining Governor Northam's administration, Secretary Strickler served as Senior Policy Advisor to Democratic members of the House of Representatives Committee on Natural Resources. And immediately prior to his time on Capitol Hill, he worked in the Virginia General Assembly as a legislative assistant to then Senator Ralph Northam. And he's originally from Lexington, Virginia, and holds master's degrees in public policy and marine science from College of William and Mary and Virginia Institute of Marine Science. So welcome, Matt. We're so glad you could be with us today. We know you had a very busy morning this morning with the Chesapeake Bay Commission. So we're really grateful that you could join us. And after you talk, we'll have about 5 minutes for question and answer if you have time. And so as Matt's speaking, we encourage all of you attending to put any questions you may have in the Q&A box at the bottom. But with that, I'll turn it over to you, Matt, and tell us about all the great things you're doing in Virginia.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Laura, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
All right. Excellent. Well, good to be with all of you. And thanks, Laura, for that kind introduction and for all of the really great work that you and your team at the Virginia Coastal Zone Management Program do to protect and restore our coasts and to support Governor Northam's conservation and resilience efforts. We truly could not do a lot of the work that we are trying to get done without you all. So really appreciate all of your knowledge and expertise and hard work. Thanks also to the team at Marco for putting together this important summit. I think I've got about 10 minutes to talk, but I'm actually more interested in just having a conversation with the folks who are here today. So I'll be a little more brief than that and save some time for maybe a little more time for questions at the end. And while I realize that today is about marine debris, I hope folks won't mind if I begin just by talking a little bit about some of our other initiatives to protect Virginia's shorelines and waterways. As you all may or may not know, both Governor Northam and I have close personal ties to Virginia's eastern shore and the waters of the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean that surround it. The governor was born and raised in Anacostia in Accomack County, and my home is a little farther south near Cape Charles in Northampton County. But both of us grew up boating, crabbing, fishing. If you can do it on the bay, name it, we've done it. And we share a similar conservation ethic as a result. In particular, desire to restore the Chesapeake Bay is one of the main reasons that we both got into public service in the first place. So, under Governor Northam's leadership, Virginia has been taking some really great strides towards more effective management of our coastal and marine resources in general. We've done our part to fight both the causes and effects of climate change by joining the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative to reduce power plant carbon pollution by 30% by 2030. Passing the Virginia Clean Economy Act to transition our power sector to 100% clean energy by 2050, updating critical policies to promote living shorelines and protect wetlands and forested buffers along our coasts, and dedicating more than $1 billion to community flood preparedness and low-income energy efficiency from the RGGI auction proceeds. And we're also, as you all may know, in the process of creating Virginia's first ever coastal resilience master plan. It will be the first statewide comprehensive coastal master plan for any state on the Atlantic coast. There are a couple of Gulf states that have this type of plan, but we're working very diligently on that and hoping to get across the finish line this fall. We've also passed legislation to ensure science-based management of Atlantic menhaden. We've invested historic amounts in clean water and oyster reef restoration through the budget. And the governor really led the way on enacting more stringent harvest limits to help rebuild stocks of Atlantic striped bass, one of our keystone species in Virginia along the coast and in the Chesapeake Bay. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we fought back attempts to open up Virginia's coastal waters to offshore oil and gas drilling, which kind of seems like a distant memory at this point, but the threat was very real. And instead, we have moved the Commonwealth towards being a national leader in offshore wind energy production and also manufacturing with the great port facilities that we have in Hampton Roads. So, with respect to marine debris, I think three things are pretty certain. First is that we have a huge and growing problem that Senator Coons acknowledged in his remarks. Second is we're way behind in addressing that problem. It keeps growing. We don't have really great solutions for either preventing some of this waste from getting into the rivers and the streams and bays in our ocean, or for getting it out once it's there. But the third thing that's certain is, we've got to start somewhere. There are a lot of folks who, look at a problem like this and say, well, it is what it is. We're not going to change. We're not going to do anything to inconvenience ourselves to address something that seems so intractable. But we don't look at it that way, and I know none of you all do. And our coastal zone management program has developed and is in the process of updating, almost completed an update of a very robust and sound marine debris reduction plan that focuses on voluntary efforts to reduce land-based inputs, derelict fishing gear, abandoned vessels, and to provide a suite of options for policymakers to enact hopefully some more stringent requirements for cleaning up waterways and keeping things out, pollution out of waterways. We also participate annually in the International Coastal Cleanup under the banner of Clean the Bay Day. This year it was actually Clean the Bay Week. We had the governor and a team from the governor's cabinet out on the tidal James River, just outside of Richmond, doing a cleanup one morning and picked up all kinds of things. Lots of cigarette butts, lots of plastic bottles, lots of fishing line. And it's, we know that that's not going to be the whole solution to the problem, but it at least sets an example for folks and lets people know that we're trying. The governor's also signed very important legislation to reduce marine debris as well, including bills that outlaw balloon releases finally, ban polystyrene food containers, double the litter tax to fund cleanup efforts, allow local governments to tax plastic bags, and create a plastic waste prevention advisory council, which is really exciting. Actually, we've got a number of practitioners in the kind of clean community space, some industry folks, and some academics who are really focused on circular economy and the materials side of things to really help us think critically about what we can do to have a less volume in our waste stream and hopefully transition to more of a circular economy with some of the things that we now see as largely as disposable. This past spring, Governor Northam made Virginia the first state to require a phase out of single-use plastic items at state agencies, colleges, and universities when he signed Executive Order 77, which is really groundbreaking work. EO 77 requires that state entities immediately cease using plastic items that have readily available substitutes. So that means plastic water bottles, straws, bags, cutlery, and food service containers will no longer be bought, sold, or distributed by state entities, which is a huge deal. Other items that are single-use plastics will be addressed in plans that are submitted by the state agencies and approved by the Department of Environmental Quality. Those plans will require 25% annual reductions in single-use plastics volume each year between 2020 and 2025, resulting in a full phase-out of most of these products over the compliance period. And importantly, the requirements also apply to concessioners and contractors. So EO 77 is going to be effective in reducing plastic waste in state government and therefore marine debris as well, because state government is one of the largest consumers of goods in Virginia. I think this will set a great example. It's a big first step, and it'll also help expand the market for plastic-free alternatives by giving folks who produce those innovative items a place to sell them. So hopefully going to have some really exciting developments on that front as we move down the road a little bit. We know that there's a lot more to do, and we have one more shot on the governor's outgoing budget and legislative package this year to propose some additional action. So we would certainly appreciate your suggestions on what we might want to consider, think about for those kind of end of term items. And again, I appreciate your time today, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Matt. We sure appreciate all you've been doing to help Virginia's coast and ocean. And now we do have plenty of time for some Q&A, and we do have a question from Dave Debler. He's asking how has Virginia updated its stormwater policies to increase capture and maintenance strategies specifically for plastics and gross solids? I don't know if we've been able to yet. I don't know if that's something you can answer, Matt.
Yeah, it's a great question, and the answer is no. We haven't done that, and it's a good idea, and it's something that we should do. I don't think the technology, at least to to capture some of the the usual suspects, right, that are getting flushed into stormwater drains is particularly complicated, right, or sophisticated, and so. We would love to see, and if anybody wants to share with Laura or share with me some ideas on how we might want to incorporate that into our stormwater regs, which we need to update, or into the Stormwater Local Assistance Fund or our state code. We're certainly all ears there.
Yeah, that'd be great. We will keep an eye out for that. And I know Katie Register with Clean Virginia Waterways, who's on our planning team, has been doing kind of annual conferences with stormwater professionals in the state. And Katie, feel free to turn on your mic if you have anything to add to that. But I think that would be a really important thing to do. I know it's probably very difficult to strain those, especially the microplastics, out of the stormwater, but and hopefully there'll be new technologies down the road that'll help with that.
This is Katie with Clean Virginia Waterways. Thank you for that call out. And yes, we will be having our 4th annual stormwater and litter workshop this fall, probably in October or November. And we will be exploring, as you said, Matt, the options for not only removing plastics at the storm drain, but also in stream. These are, though, often high maintenance, expensive solutions. So of course, we'll also be talking about turning off the faucet of plastic that's entering the environment.
Great. We have another question from the Q&A box, and I hope Bridget is okay with hearing. Apparently she was having some trouble with the volume. So we will try to speak up for you, Bridget. But SM, whoever that is asking, how does the state envision closed loop circular economy with plastics debris? Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. Once the plastic becomes debris and it's out in the environment, it's going to be harder to get that. Is already kind of out of the loop, right? And so what we want to encourage, and this is something that's possible under Executive Order 77, and there's some good examples, I think, going on at a couple of our state universities with this. It's basically, I guess there are 2 ways to do this. One is a kind of extended producer responsibility regime, where folks who are selling things that come in, plastic bottles, for example, soft drinks, et cetera, that those would be, the responsibility of the producer through whatever contract they have as vendors with the state entity, or the state entity would just have, an agreement to collect all of that waste and get it back to the distributor or the producer in order for it to be reused or recycled. And so capturing it, and keeping it as part of a waste stream that kind of goes back to the beginning of the cycle versus trying to, deal with collecting it once it's out in the environment, I think is our biggest, our biggest kind of goal there. Obviously, that doesn't solve the problem of what's already out in the environment, but our first step here, I think, is to just try to stop the bleeding, and to as Katie mentioned, kind of turn off the faucet of plastics and give ourselves a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah. And that question was from one of our colleagues, Swarna, in New Jersey with Clean Ocean Action. So thanks for that, Swarna. We have another question about, does Virginia have a bottle bill? It works really well in Oregon, where he's from, and there's virtually no street litter. Do you want to tell the sad story, Matt?
Sure. So I would love for there to be a bottle bill. I think there are a lot of folks in the conservation community who would like for there to be one too. And Laura may actually know more of the history. sorry, I'm losing my earpiece here, may know a little bit more of the history on this than I do, but there are some very entrenched interests in Virginia, the Beverage Association, the soft drink folks, the beer bottlers who just oppose this. And their reasons are not particularly rational because we've got good evidence that these bills work and that they're not a burden on industry in the states where they do exist. But we have not been successful in getting one enacted in Virginia. So, perhaps in the next General Assembly session, who knows? But it would be great to see that get done.
Yeah. I believe there was it a Senator Marie who tried for 30 years, introduced a bottle bill every year for 30 years. So it hasn't failed for lack of effort, but political will from the industry has been pretty strong. So we will keep at it. We have a couple more questions, and we have, let's see, we've got a few more minutes. So I'm going to take this one from Sarah Nichols. How do you communicate the economic value of plastic-free initiatives and policies on tourism and the livelihood of coastal communities, especially for the more conservative politicians out there that don't necessarily understand the financial impacts of marine debris and litter?
Right.
So communicating economic value of.
So it's a good question, and interestingly, in my mind, and I think there's evidence of this in Virginia, it breaks down more along geographic lines than it does along ideological lines. One of the most conservative members of the State House in Virginia is Rob Bloxham, my state delegate who represents the Eastern Shore of Virginia, and he voted for the balloon ban bill because he knows that his folks over here on the Eastern Shore, watermen, the tourism industry, they're seeing this stuff show up on the beaches. They're seeing it show up in the waterways. They know it kills sea turtles. They know it gets in fishing gear. So, they don't want it. And I think that's, something that is important information that we can use to create some good bipartisan sets of champions for some of this work. At the same time, there are, folks who have a tendency to be kind of go along with what the more kind of conservative elements of the business community want. And, folks are very averse to change in Virginia, but I think in business circles in general, especially if it's change that they're being told to do versus, coming up with on their own. So I think there is a lot of education and outreach that needs to be done. I think on the economic piece, that's really important. We probably need to do some additional work as far as surveys to get a handle on how important that is for Virginia to make sure that we don't have beaches that are covered up with plastic. And I don't know, Laura probably knows better than I do if there's been any work to try to figure out the kind of willingness to pay for cleaner beaches, cleaner waterways in the Commonwealth, but that certainly would be a useful kind of set of facts to have to go to the General Assembly.
Yeah, and I know we have some of that willingness to pay. I don't know that it's Virginia specific, but some of those kind of data are around that we can use. But I know that's been on Katie's and my to-do list to really get together more specific, Virginia specific information on that and get that communicated. So another thing for our to-do list. I think, let's see, someone, and we only have another minute, but someone's asked, have Virginia universities embraced the Executive Order 77 to decrease the single-use plastic? Are you getting a lot of resistance, or is it going all right?
It depends. There've been some grumbling from some folks, but others have really embraced it. And some of our flagship universities, University of Virginia, George Mason University, are way out in front on this. And they totally get it. They want to do it. They know, importantly, that their students demand it, right? I mean, the college kids, by and large, that generation thinks that waste that has a negative environmental impact, and particularly waste that is produced from petroleum products, is not cool. And so that's an important, kind of selling point that I think a lot of university presidents and administrators understand, and I think see this as an opportunity. There'll be challenges for sure, but I think on the whole, we're in pretty good shape. And DEQ has just been doing an amazing job with their outreach work, kind of holding people's hands through the process. So we're getting pretty good cooperation from people.
Yeah, we're trying to do our part. We're not using daily trash can plastic bag liners in our offices. There's so many little things that we all can do to really cut back. So I'm sorry, I know there's more questions coming in the Q&A box. We thank you for those. But we probably do need to move along. I think we have Tommy Wells waiting in the wings for us. So we just want to thank you so much, Secretary Strickler. There's Tommy. And I know you two are friends. So we thank you so much for all your work, Matt, and for being with us today. And I was hoping we could catch up on this morning's Bay Commission talk. Hopefully some good things came out of that. I know you touched on marine debris there, but there's never enough time.
We'll talk soon, and thanks again for having me, Laura, and for putting this on, and appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody. Tommy, good to see you, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt, and welcome, Tommy Wells. We're glad to have you. Tommy is the director of the Department of Energy and Environment, and most recently served as DC Council member representing Ward 6, a position he's held since 2006. And during his time on the council, he garnered broad support for his efforts to make the district livable and walkable for all. And in 2009, he crafted the Anacostia River Cleanup and Protection Act of 2009 to implement a 5-cent fee on disposable bags and create a restoration fund for the Anacostia River. And this landmark legislation prompted thousands of district residents to curb their use of plastic bags and opt for reusable, green alternatives. He's a passionate innovator and student of cutting-edge solutions, earned his law degree from Columbus School of Law at Catholic University and a master's in social work from University of Minnesota. And again, we thank you for coming, and we thank Matt Robinson on your staff there for arranging this for us. And if you're okay, Tommy, after you speak, we'll have another Q&A session with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laura. And it's I'm honored to be here with the second Mid-Atlantic Marine Debris Summit. And, I hopefully that we'll continue with summits like this until they're no longer needed. But I'm also honored to be here with Matt Strickler. He's been a great colleague, and to have leadership from Virginia really step up under Governor Northam has made a big difference. And, we can't ever take for granted the political leadership and the will that's needed in order to make the changes that we need. And to see the governor, along with Matt's leadership and everyone else that works around them, has been inspiring and so greatly appreciated. Virginia has a major role, obviously, in the whole Bay watershed and the coast. So thank you. And Matt, thank you for your leadership. And also thank you to Dr. Kelsey Leonard of the Shinnecock Nation in New York. It really is, it's going to take all of us to get where we need to go to address the scourge of single-use plastics. I'm excited to be learning about their efforts in combating one of the most significant environmental threats we all share. And that, again, that's marine debris and litter. Like so many of the coastal jurisdictions in the Mid-Atlantic, the district's plagued by discarded trash and debris. We've tried to address this issue locally and through a variety of methods, including new at the time, and innovative policies. When I was on the city council as a council member, as Laura noted, I passed the Anacostia River Cleanup and Protection Act of 2009. And that's the 5-cent fee on single-use retail plastic bags. And it's a restoration fund for the Anacostia River. And I want to note that when I proposed the bill and had to argue about it, I made the opponents always say the name of the bill, which of course, the Anacostia River Cleanup Protection Initiative. And so they would always say, yes, we support that, but just not this way. And then the second thing is that the money being really devoted towards cleanup, environmental cleanup, really made it more palatable. It wasn't just a new way to get into people's pockets. So it was based on science showing that plastic bags are one of the most significant forms of pollution in our waterways. In addition, DC has also implemented policies that you've heard about, focused on reducing and eliminating the presence of two other types of trash that in our surveys we found to be major problems: polystyrene foam or styrofoam and plastic straws. The Sustainable DC Omnibus Act of 2014 banned the sale of the use of disposable food service ware made by expanded polystyrene, plastic straws, and other products that cannot be recycled or composted. The success of the policies are irrefutable. On your screen, you'll see a slide with example statistics from implementation of our bag law. From 2010, the bag law has generated over $21 million in revenue. This funding's been used to do the following: install and maintain several trash traps, so we're getting more than bags out of the river. In the watersheds, captured 70 million pounds of trash and debris since 2009. We restored 29,000 linear feet of stream habitat, provided 9,700 students with overnight environmental education trips to teach them about watershed and stewardship, and then provide 7,500 people with educational boat tours to go up and down on the Anacostia for free to teach them about the importance of the river. I just did that earlier today with 20 people to introduce them again to a beautiful used to be an industrial river, but it's being restored, and it creates the kind of allies that we need for the laws that we need to have. We've planted 3,000 trees and installed 2,300 rain barrels, again, through the bag tax or bag fee, whatever you want to call it. The graph in the middle of the slide shows a precipitous decline in the number of plastic bags that we've seen during volunteer cleanups in DC over the past decade. Also, thanks in part to our robust enforcement program at DOEE, we have experienced extremely high compliance rates with the bag law among local businesses. And I'll note that nobody has ever run for office in DC on the platform to repeal the bag law. It's a great example of a success story, which has inspired both behavior change and environmental benefits. And litter and trash are just one part of the issue. So we have serious issues with illegal dumping throughout the district. So if you go to the next slide, you see a picture showing an example of what I mean. Over 20,000 pounds of trash and debris enters our local waterways annually due to illegal dumping. That's why in 2016, we started a program called Dump Busters. And I thank Matt Robinson for the name of the program. A partnership between DOEE and the DC Department of Public Works and our Metropolitan Police Department. All three agencies work together to surveil local illegal dumping hotspots using enforcement cameras that DOEE buys and tips from residents. Since the beginning of the program in 2016, over 100 people have been fined and or arrested. In addition to the environmental benefits, we strongly believe this type of enforcement improves our local communities, shows that we care, especially in our distressed communities, and it really does impact the quality of life for all our residents. But we still have a lot to do. Only 0.4% of the Potomac River watershed and only 0.1% of the Chesapeake watershed is in DC. Obviously, we're an even smaller fraction of the entire Mid-Atlantic. That's why we believe it's important to lead by example, work together with other local jurisdictions to address the issue. Only together can we tackle this task of making our streams, rivers, estuaries, and oceans free from trash and debris. So thank you again for inviting me today, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Director Wells. That's great. We really admire all the work you and Matt have been doing, and we want to thank you for lending Matt's time to our work group. He always keeps us laughing, so, as I'm sure he does you too. So it's been a pleasure. So I am going to check in the Q&A box. I don't see any questions in there yet, but I have a question that I was thinking about when I saw the fines for the dumping and the jail time. What's the largest fine that you've levied so far, and the longest, or if any, jail sentence?
Well, first, let me say, we're pretty close to a 100% conviction rate. It is amazing because of the cameras. We've had people walk up to the signs that has a camera hidden on it, stare and read the sign, and then dump right where it says illegal dumping. So the conviction rate has been extraordinary. So it depends on their graduated fines that go up to 800 or more, but also we can attach their businesses. At some point, they can lose the ability to do business in the District of Columbia. So there's a whole range of penalties beyond just the criminal, you get a criminal charge. So the range goes up to $800, but also they can lose their assets, especially if they do it more than once, and some do.
Yeah, well, I'm seeing lots of questions pop up in the box now. So Kim Warner from Oceana is asking, do you have any Dustbusters cameras in Ward 8, which is the Woods Oxen Run Park?
We are mostly around the Anacostia River right now. And they're mostly in Ward 8 and Ward 7. And so obviously there's a relationship to the Oxen Run is more of a part of the Potomac watershed. But I'll have to ask Matt, but I know that majority of our cameras are all in Ward 7 and 8. I'm not sure yet if we're covering Oxen Run, but Oxen Run's been a problem.
Yeah, okay. All right, let me get you some more. Who monitored the surveillance cameras, and was that in real time? If so, who responds to it?
So they're not in real time. They're responded to by NPD. NPD goes in and takes the chips out or whatever it is, the card, and then especially after there's been an illegal dumping, and then they go back and look to see. So the cameras are generally not live to another site, but they're like they're really like wildlife camera traps. So you periodically check it, but we obviously will know if someone's dumped, and then we go back and look, and they're read by MPD.
Okay, great. Well, you're getting lots of thanks and kudos in the Q&A for all the work on the Anacostia. Let's see. Do you have any recent data on the bags found in the cleanups? Are they still, whoops, the question jumped around. Are they still being monitored for effectiveness assessment?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because we do an inventory with Alice Ferguson Foundation and others. And whenever they do a cleanup, they do an inventory. And we now have something called the Anacostia Green Boats, where people will go out on our canoes for free and pick trash off the sides of the river. And then we inventoried that as well. And what we found was that from before the bill to now, there was about a 65% to 75% drop in the number of bags that we found in the trash when we inventory it. And at the same time, that's the same kind of drop that our grocery stores and others that use plastic bags have found, a 65 to 75% drop in use of single-use disposable plastic bags. But what's interesting, we got the biggest jump, obviously, in the first 6 months, and it's only been incremental improvements into where it's kind of plateaued around 75%. So it impacted behavior, and certainly anybody that knows DC, that percentage means a lot more than it used to, because we have so many more grocery stores, so many, well, especially grocery stores in the city, but it does plateau. And so when we think about what is this the most effective way to get plastic bags out of the river, if we can get to 75%, it gives us the ability to do the other cleanups, these Mandalong trash traps that pick up, plastic balls, all the kind of things that get swept down the stormwater. We're pulling out tons and tons of trash from the things that are funded by the bag bill. So it's a trade-off, but I would say that the amount is around 70 to 75% at best.
Yeah, great. We've got 2 more minutes, and there's a question. I like this one. If DC were to have a bottle bill, would it consider working with its neighbors, Maryland and Virginia, and would a regional approach be more effective?
That's a great question. And the reason it's a great question is that there's a continuum of what bottle bills there are. On one end, there should, one approach is just ban single-use plastic containers. Just do a plastic ban. On the other end is what Matt talked about that we've looked at is EPR bills that says that those that make money off selling these products, they have to come in with a plan and retrieve their packaging. In between is a deposit bill. And a deposit bill really would require regional cooperation. It would be hard for DC to do a deposit bill on its own of how you stamp the bottles at the bottling plant with the 5 cents and then where you can retrieve them. Certainly having DC bottles stamped by themselves would be very difficult because, you go to a Costco and they buy bottles for the region. And so we wouldn't want everybody in Maryland and Virginia redeeming their bottles in the district, because then it wouldn't be self-sustaining. So if we went the route of a deposit bill, it would have to be regional. But otherwise, on the other types of bills, styrofoam ban, or bag fee, that gets picked up regionally. I mean, now we work together more regionally as one takes the lead over the other, and then we match them with the bill, like the coal tar ban for driveways. So, we really need the advocates to tell our bosses, whether it be a governor or a mayor or elected officials, that it's time. There's no question with these other ways that we're controlling trash, it's single-use plastic containers that are floating in our rivers and waterways.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. And again, I have to apologize. There are more questions in there. And hopefully, I think we can capture the questions in Zoom. And we'll see if we can figure out if we can get people their answers. But people had asked about extended producer responsibility and those kinds of things, and whether vandalism is a problem, and how have you been successful to get your funds you collect going back into conservation. So I thank everybody for weighing in with their questions, and we'll see what we can do post-summit to get you some answers. But thank you so much, Director Wells, and it's such a pleasure to meet you. We've heard a lot about you from Matt. So our thanks again to both you and Matt for doing this with us today.
Thank you very much.
All right. Hope we see you soon.
You bet.
Okay, so next up, we have Kelsey Leonard. And I am so excited Kelsey can be with us today. Dr. Kelsey Leonard of the Shinnecock Nation is going to speak about I hope I pronounce it right, Paumanok Beautiful Project on Long Island. Kelsey's a water scientist, a legal scholar, a policy expert, and enrolled citizen of the Shinnecock Nation of Long Island. She is the first Native American woman to earn a science degree, a master's in water science, policy, and management from the University of Oxford, which she earned in 2012. And her work focuses on Indigenous water justice and its climatic, territorial, and governance underpinnings for our shared sustainable future. She also represents the Shinnecock Nation on Marco's Mid-Atlantic Committee on the Ocean Steering Committee. And prior to that, our regional planning body, so many years of service with us. And she has been instrumental in safeguarding the interests of Indigenous nations for environmental planning, building Indigenous science and knowledge into new solutions for sustainable water and ocean governance. And also a rock star on TED Talks, if you want to catch some of those. Terrific. I love her talks about giving legal rights to natural objects. But anyway, welcome, Kelsey. And
thank you so much.
We're going to turn it over to you. And I think you're going to advance your own slides. So hopefully you can share your screen.
Yes,
and there you are.
Believe it's shared now. So hello, Akwe. It's great to be with everyone, and thanks so much to Laura and the team for the wonderful introduction, but also for putting together this amazing conference to talk about marine debris and plastic pollution. So as Laura said in my introduction, I'm Dr. Kelsey Leonard. I'm a citizen of the Shinnecock Nation. I've served in different policy roles in furtherance of protection of the ocean and our coastal ecosystems. Today, I'm going to kind of talk about the intersection of being a concerned citizen and a policymaker. And that's sort of where this project, Keep Paumanok Beautiful, came from. So let's dive right in. So for those that are unfamiliar, there are over 30 federally recognized tribal nations across what we may know as sort of the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, New England more broadly. And my nation is one of those federally recognized nations. We are the Shinnecock Nation, and we're located on the east end of Long Island in New York. Why that is important is because, as you sort of heard from my colleagues who I have the distinct pleasure of being a co-panelist with today, we are all trying to think through the legislative, policy, legal mechanisms by which we can shift behavior and really allow for greater behavior change to be mobilized so that we can tackle this really big problem. Why this map is important, as we sort of come back around to the tribal perspective, is all of these federally recognized tribes are their own sovereign nations. So we have our own laws, our own legal system, our own challenges, just like the municipalities and the states and the national government, in how we address marine debris from a policy, governmental, legislative perspective. And Shinnecock is also in the mix trying to tackle this really, really big problem we have not only along the Atlantic coast, but also throughout the world. So for those that are unfamiliar with Shinnecock, our nation, as I mentioned earlier, is located on the east end of what's currently known as Long Island, New York. But in our language, in the Shinnecock language, which is a part of the larger Algonquin language family, we often have called the island and still call the island Paumanok. And so that's a bit of reference to the project that I'll be describing in a moment. As a coastal tribal nation right on the Atlantic Ocean, as you can see here, the sort of area in purple is our existing territory or reservation, but traditionally it would have been much of all of eastern Long Island, but for colonization where we now find ourselves. That said, we have a really robust history and background in being coastal peoples. So from being fishers to both in the context of variety of aquatic species, including shellfish, quahogs, as you can see here in the bottom picture, harvesting them, eating them, making really great sumptuous foods. If you love a good clam bake, that tradition is out of our ways of knowing and knowledge systems. And then we would use all parts of these aquatic species in the context of quahogs. We would carve them and make them into wampum beads, as you can see here. So we have a really rich tradition of environmental stewardship, protection relating to the coastal world. And in recent years, we've also coupled that traditional ecological knowledge with our conservation and restoration efforts, as you can see here, in terms of our beach nourishment projects, beach restoration projects that also include the planting of a variety of seagrasses to allow for shoreline resiliency. So we're doing all this really great work. We're highlighting it in the work that we do with the Mid-Atlantic Committee on the Ocean, formerly the regional planning bodies. And a few years back, we get, these really, really wonderfully done scientific studies about plastic debris along the Atlantic coast. And one of the highest contributors to that plastic debris globally is cigarette butts, because there are plastic filters in cigarette butts. And we had a breakdown of the study results in a presentation. And for New York State, especially in the top 5 contributors to plastic debris along New York shorelines was cigarette butts, in particular, the lack of ability for the decomposition of plastic filters or the sort of long-term scale by which that decomposition occurs, not very quickly. So in thinking about that, unfortunately, despite all of our beach restoration efforts, we're in sort of coastal towns, a lot of vacationers, a lot of folks that, do litter. And we were not absent from finding these cigarette butts also littering our coastal tribal shores, as well as in surrounding neighborhoods. And so a light bulb went off. This is sort of shifting from my policy hat to concerned citizen hat. Maybe it's a little bit of the marriage of both. We as tribal nations along the United States, I won't have enough time to go into the history of our economic development, but due to aspects of colonization, the way in which our communities have been sort of pigeonholed into certain economic opportunities, we do have a significant amount of smoke shops. So smoke shops, for those that are not familiar, are shops that sell in large part cigarettes, but other items. Sometimes They also serve as convenience or food stores because unfortunately, across many of our tribal nations along the East Coast, we live in food deserts, which means we don't have access to grocery stores or supermarkets. So the smoke shops, they serve a lot of sort of a multiplicity of purposes, but they also sell cigarettes. And cigarettes, therefore, are contributing to this larger national global issue we have around plastic debris and marine debris. And so I was a concerned citizen and I said, hey, maybe there's something we could be doing to help with that behavior shift and change. And so in partnership with National Native American Youth Organization, because I also believe that as, you know, at the time when I put forward this project, I was still considered a youth under 30. But I also believe that if we were going to make the substantial impact we need to address marine debris, it should be youth-driven and youth-led. So I partnered with a national Native youth organization called Running Strong for American Indian Youth. They have a Dream Starter program. I was a part of their environmental science cohort, and I put forward this project to address marine debris, particularly cigarette butts, on Long Island through the Keep Pominock Beautiful campaign. And so what we did is we created a take a pledge against plastic. As my colleagues have said, it's really, really difficult to get legislation passed, especially when there's not a lot of education and knowledge among the general public. So a lot of this work was trying to educate our tribal public as well as the general public on Long Island as to why these types of initiatives are needed. Thankfully, since we started the program, and I also added a bit, if you want to take the plastic pledge, I put it into the chat box for you. You can go there and take the pledge. Thankfully, since we started this program in 2017, we've actually seen a lot of local initiatives evolve, including a plastic bag tax and ban in Suffolk County on Long Island and other initiatives. So it's good to be in good company, as you might say. But we needed to also shift our behavior on our reservation. So what we did through the project is we created kits, sort of plastic-free kits. As you can see here, they came with a reusable bag because with that behavior shift, you need to have people recognize that this is doable. This is something that's accessible, especially for marginalized communities. So we had a reusable bag in the kit. We had a reusable cup. We had reusable utensils and reusable straws. One thing you'll note here, and this is a part of the larger machine of marine debris issues, is even in our best attempt to have reusable materials, the items still came in plastic packaging. So that's a big thing for when we think about, industry and how we can maybe get some of those more national taxes onto industry to limit their ability to use these types of single-use plastics in the wrapping of materials. Also, to address the cigarette component, as I mentioned earlier, we purchased these pocket ashtrays. So they're what is up in the right-hand corner at the top. Those were made out of biodegradable material on the outside. The interior is a fire-resistant paper, but the latch is also made out of metal. So we tried to find a pocket ashtray which would be as environmentally friendly as possible. For those that are unfamiliar with a pocket ashtray, it literally is an ashtray that you can put in your pocket. It's a place to put your cigarette butts so that you don't litter them on the ground. You collect them in the pocket until you get to a receptacle later in your day and you can dump it out and it's reusable. And so we handed those out at different events. We made them available to our smoke shops. And then we also purchased receptacles. I know I'm running low on time, so I'll just say that solid waste management is a massive issue for tribal nations. We don't have the same resources or tax base that local municipalities or the states do to manage solid waste. So something as basic as having a cigarette butt receptacle is very much absent from many of our communities. So through the project, we purchased cigarette butt receptacles to post outside of community facilities as well as smoke shops, so that there would be less likelihood of littering in those vicinities. So all of this was hopeful to encourage folks to ask themselves every day, what have they done for the water, in hopes to combat marine debris. So thank you. Apologies for going a little bit over.
No problem, Kelsey. That was great. We're doing fine on time. Sorry if you felt rushed, but that was terrific. And Let me see. I think we had a comment in the chat, but you were already ahead of it. Somebody was offering to share with you a producer of pocket ashtrays. But
we're always looking for more ideas. So yes, feel free. I think I can put my email in the chat box, but yeah, we'd love more ideas. This was again a pilot project. So we purchased about in total around 1,000 kits, which actually meets the mandate of all of our adult citizens for our tribal nations. So that's what we were aiming for.
Terrific. All right, I'm checking the Q&A and I think some things are popping in there. Let's see, one question is, let's see, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I think these are, I hope these are all for you and not from the previous, but well, this one is for sure. Would not stainless steel utensils to go, let's see, stainless steel utensils to go better with the straw? I don't know if it's been difficult to get, I'm not sure, the picture that you showed of the food utensils in the little pouch, were those made of, what were those made of?
Yeah, so those were bamboo utensils. I think one of the sort of decision markers for us in choosing the wood utensils is it actually has a closer connection, although bamboo is not indigenous to the United States, it does have a closer connection to our cultural history of utensils. So historically, we had wood utensils and we would use them significantly. We actually were even sought after for our carving of wood utensils, and they would often be used by the different vacationing wealthy families in the Hamptons. We lost that tradition. It sort of went away. And so this was our nod to that historic cultural marker, as opposed to using stainless steel.
Yeah, that's great. We do have a question from Meredith saying, can you share more about solid waste management differences on tribal lands? I had not considered this before, but see that it may prompt different considerations for marine debris management plans.
Yeah, I don't know if I have enough time to go into full detail on that. I would just say it's a resources money question. So when you think about, budget line items, costing out receptacles, public receptacles, then the cost of having, being able to pay for staff to empty those receptacles. If you go to those that are more automated machines, they get up into sort of the $50,000 range. There isn't a tax base by which we can fund those initiatives. So we worked in partnership with the EPA to have different types of solid waste management programs put in. But the sustainability is always a long-term question for us. And sometimes, as I'm sure most of the folks that are on today's session are aware, the frequency of new materials makes it very difficult to keep our solid waste management plans up to date, right? We're getting all these different types of materials coming into the solid waste stream. And it can be very overwhelming for small systems like tribal reservations to be able to adapt to.
Yeah, I'm just going to blow through some of these questions real quick. I know we're 1 minute over, but that's okay. We got a nice break coming up. If people need to break, feel free. But somebody asked, how were you able to track the marine debris that you did collect? And another question was, if you've considered partnership with entities that offer the receptacles and collect the waste for recycling, saying that TerraCycle used to do that. So
yeah, I think I'll work backwards. So on the TerraCycle, we had explored partnerships. I had looked into their programming before, but it didn't seem clear that they were able to accept it from tribal nations. I think there'd have to be sort of more exploration as to, what those types of agreements look like. I definitely think tribal nations along the Eastern coast would be really interested in creative programs. Some have other types of financial resources that they can, lend to having their own solid waste management programs, but we're always looking for opportunities to partner. I can't remember the exact details for TerraCycle, but I feel like they stopped collecting on Long Island and it wasn't an option for us due to some reason. Maybe they've restarted.
Yeah. Well, another quick question.
Yeah.
was, have you had any opposition to using the stainless steel straws?
Oh, yes, that one. So not that I'm aware of. Most folks were using it as an educational tool to talk about sort of why plastic straws are detrimental to marine life, particularly marine life that we have a deep, storage connection to. I would say that when I think about how we feast and how we eat and consume, not a lot of our drinks require a straw. So I see more folks just really excited about the reusable cup, particularly because it's a copper plated cup that has significance culturally for us as well. So many folks are really excited about the cup, not so much the straw, but I also just don't know, we don't have a lot of data yet as to whether or not our community uses a lot of straws to begin with. So I think it's just nice to have and to have a conversation based on a tool.
Yeah, yeah. And somebody was saying they wonder if bamboo or paper might be even better than stainless steel. I know we've done paper straws in our program, but they're all good. And last question. Oh, I'm sorry, we're running out of time. But somebody had asked how you're able to track the marine debris that you collected.
Yeah, so we did not have enough in our initial starter grant to do marine debris collection to actually track along our coast. We used data that was already collected at the state level just to determine the need and sort of make a proof of concept. That said, we have hopes, COVID hit us, but we have hopes that we actually could have point of return of folks' cigarette butts at the smoke shops, and then use a bucket system to actually collect that and weigh that and have a bit of sort of data to share through sort of citizen science of what does it look like when you collect butts and bring it back to these locations. But that hasn't actually materialized yet, so we'll see if it happens.
Always so much more to do. But it's so great talking with you today, Kelsey. I know everyone has enjoyed it and so appreciates your perspective on things. And so thanks for being with us. And I think we should probably take our 10-minute break now. We do have some fun Bob Marley and the Wailers music for you to listen to. And we'll come back here at 1:50. Great. See you in a few minutes.